Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping into the world of Israeli Knesset member Tali Gotliv. She's a political figure who doesn't just make headlines.
No, she seems to actively shape them, doesn't she? Really pushes boundaries.
Exactly. And invites, some pretty intense legal and public scrutiny along the way. So our mission today is really to unpack the core of her, often controversial stances. We'll look at her legal battles, what seems to drive her fight.
And hopefully give you a clearer understanding of her specific arguments and the very high-stakes political world she's navigating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for this deep dive, we've been working from a pretty revealing YouTube interview transcript. So that gives us a kind of direct window into how she sees things, her perspective on all these charged issues.
It really does. It's quite a look at someone who, clearly doesn't shy away from confrontation. So you're about to hear her unfiltered views on, everything from clashes with legal authorities right through to international relations.
All presented in her very distinctive, unapologetic style.
So where do we even begin with MK Gotliv? The source material kind of throws us right into a legal whirlwind, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. It points straight away to these potential criminal charges against her, allegedly for revealing the name of Shikma Bulls' husband, something that was protected by a court gag order.
Right. And there are also these accusations that she justified or even encouraged protesters who allegedly attacked right-wing Knesset members.
Yes, but what's immediately striking is how she pushes back on that. Her counter-argument, she doesn't actually deny supporting protesters, but she reframes it. She clarifies she was, and I quote, encouraging right-wing protesters to call out those who support terror.
So very specific framing.
Very specific. She insists she was precise with her words, even suggesting she could have been much bolder. And, this framing is just crucial for understanding her perspective on things.
And didn't she also explicitly mention calling Knesset member Ayman Odeh my enemy right there in the Knesset? He's a prominent rival from an Arab party.
She did, yes. And that led to her suspension.
But what's really remarkable is her, absolute lack of regret about using those words.
None whatsoever. And she just dismisses anyone on the ethics committee who might have condemned her for it.
It's quite something.
Indeed. And she goes further, actually. She explicitly states she did not see any violence in the events that were mentioned in those accusations.
Okay, so that really raises a key question for us, doesn't it? How does she define violence versus, say, expressing very strong opinions or protesting?
Exactly. Her perspective clearly diverges from the official line here. She maintains flat out there was no violence. It just highlights this really fundamental difference in how she justifies her actions compared to condemnation.
So on one hand, she's accused of supporting actions that others are definitely labeling as violent. But on the other hand, she sees it as just, legitimately calling out what she perceives as terror support.
That's her narrative.
And these sort of initial skirmishes with protesters and ethics committees, they seem to escalate pretty quickly, don't they, into more significant confrontations, especially with legal authority. The Attorney General, Gali Baharov Miara, comes up specifically.
Yes. The source highlights that Gotliv refused point blank to attend multiple hearings, declared them illegal, and stated she had, quote, no intention of cooperating.
Wow. Okay, so that's really throwing down the gauntlet, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is where her stance becomes a direct challenge to the system itself. She frames her refusal as, a matter of deeply held principle. From her perspective, offering more chances to someone who, as she puts it, spits on you, that's just ill-advised.
Right.
And she argues that a hearing for a state employee is a right, not an obligation. Therefore, you can choose to waive it, just not show up.
So individual choice over institutional process.
Pretty much, yeah. It champions that idea.
And then she articulates this unique interpretation of government authority versus the legal process.
Yes, this is really interesting. Her contention is that government decisions are valid until the government itself decides otherwise. She argues that the proper process, which is the Grunis Committee, that's an established mechanism for reviewing these kinds of matters, wasn't convened for the Attorney General.
Okay.
Which, in her view, renders all these other ceremonies, as she calls them, illegitimate.
So she believes the Minister of Justice and the government should just step in, cancel previous decisions, and directly decide to dismiss the Attorney General.
Exactly. And she asserts this would be perfectly legal.
That's quite a take on procedural norms.
It is. And this interpretation, that executive decisions stand until they're explicitly revoked, potentially bypassing traditional legal checks like the Grunis Committee. It's not just a procedural argument, is it? It's a fundamental challenge to judicial oversight.
Right. It really highlights that deep tension we see in democracies everywhere about where ultimate power lies. Is it with elected officials or legal institutions?
Precisely. Her perspective essentially champions executive power as supreme until it's actively overturned by that same executive power.
And she seems to anticipate pushback, right? She expects the High Court of Justice would intervene if the government tried to dismiss the AG.
Oh, definitely. She anticipates it. She even names the Movement for Quality Government a well-known legal watchdog group in Israel, claims they get foreign funding, and says they're already working on a petition against such a move.
So she's connecting perceived foreign influence with these domestic legal challenges.
Yes, drawing that direct line.
And she has this very direct, almost personal take on how the dismissal should happen, even drafting what a dismissal letter might say.
Yeah, focusing on lack of cooperation.
Yeah.
And she has this almost, you could say, sarcastic moment where she says, I am the dictator, sort of playing on how others might see her or the government's actions.
Yeah, leaning into the criticism.
Exactly. And she also points out what she sees as this absurdity that the attorney general, the government's top legal advisor, apparently doesn't even have an email address listed on the government website.
Really?
Yeah. She compares it to like God or the Queen of England not having an email.
Okay, that highlights her communication style, doesn't it? Using these kinds of analogies, these pointed observations.
It does. To highlight what she sees as hypocrisy or inefficiency in the system, it's very much part of her distinctive, unfiltered approach.
And all these internal struggles seem to set the stage for her views on, well, international relations and foreign influence, specifically regarding the U.S. government.
Yes, that comes through very strongly. She makes a really powerful claim that the Biden administration was funding what she calls the rebellion and the protest during the judicial reform period.
That's a huge accusation.
It is, and she doesn't stop there. She explicitly states her belief that the Biden administration, quote, doesn't want us to win the war.
Wow. So framing U.S. policy as actively undermining Israel's stability and security?
That's exactly how she frames it, yeah. And then she suggests the U.S. should impose personal sanctions on specific individuals she names in Itzhak, Amitai, and Amira, who she identifies as radical left-wing elements funded by the Biden administration.
And in her view, these individuals are actively undermining democracy in Israel.
That's her claim, yes. She argues they should be denied entry into the United States.
So this isn't just rhetoric. It's a call for concrete action based on her assessment of foreign influence.
Absolutely. A very clear call for direct action against those she sees as threats, both internal and external, to Israeli democracy as she defines it.
Okay, so shifting gears slightly, the interview also touches on her personal approach, her resilience, which seems pretty central to her public persona.
It does. She openly says she doesn't care how she...
Really? Just doesn't care.
Well, she acknowledges that sometimes she wishes she could appear differently, maybe softer, but ultimately she embraces who she is. And this commitment extends to what she calls the righteousness of her actions.
Righteousness, that's a strong word.
Very. She believes the prime minister trusts her. She states she doesn't back down from interviews, even when she's saying things that are, hard to hear.
And she feels she's often right.
Yes, she feels she's often right, even saying she sometimes wishes she wasn't, especially in difficult situations, like mentioning her past comments about certain security officials.
Okay. And her response to that potential indictment we mentioned earlier for revealing the name under gag order.
Oh, that's particularly striking. She basically challenges the authorities, says, come already and file the indictment. States she'll make it a Katzar trial in the Knesset committee. That's a kind of specialized, expedited parliamentary legal proceeding.
So she's not backing down an inch.
Not at all. Not only does she reiterate she doesn't regret her actions.
She emphatically says she would do it again.
Exactly. And she invokes this really powerful idea saying, someone who feels God is very difficult to scare.
Wow. That speaks volumes about her conviction, doesn't it? Her refusal to be intimidated by legal or political pressure.
It really does. She explicitly says that when she fights these attempts to silence her, she believes she's fighting for the right. Not just for herself, but, quote, for all of us. It's a very dramatic and impassioned way to frame it, positioning herself as a kind of warrior for a broader cause.
Right, a defender of something larger. And then finally, she does reflect on the state of Israel itself, which is interesting after all the focus on conflict and controversy.
It is. Despite all the intense political battles she's involved in, she describes Israel as a magnificent, beautiful country. Talks about a glorious and charming people, a strong army and spirit. She expresses a wish for righteousness in the path for the soldiers and fighters.
So underneath all the confrontation, there's this deep patriotism.
That seems to be the ultimate message, yes. Resilience. She stresses that we have no other right and no other place. This sort of unwavering commitment to the nation, regardless of the internal strife, it really serves as a powerful undercurrent to her highly confrontational political style.
Okay, so this deep dive has really explored the multifaceted and, let's face it, often confrontational world of M.K. Tali Gotliv. It reveals a figure who seems deeply entrenched in these battles over legal authority, political loyalty, national identity.
Yeah, her perspective, as laid out in that source material, it really paints a picture of a political arena where, well, every single word and action carries significant weight and potential repercussions.
Definitely. We've seen her steadfast denial of violence, her unique interpretation of legal processes.
Mm-hmm. And her firm belief in her own, well, righteousness.
Right.
So as we wrap up, maybe we should consider Gotliv's closing reflection. She references that enduring sentiment from Naomi Scheimer's song, No, I Haven't Yet Built It, which she interprets as this constant human need for more and more.
That's interesting. This unceasing drive for more, whether it's more influence, more truth, more control. What does that mean for political discourse, for the fabric of a nation that's constantly, in motion?
It's a great question. It really makes you think. In a world where we're always striving, perpetually wanting more, where do we find the balance?
Yeah, the balance between what is and what is desired.
Yeah.
A really provocative thought to end on.